r/AskReddit by Redical. What are the worst injuries you have sustained doing the simplest, most mundane tasks that should not have caused any injuries? I dislocated my knee, putting socks on. I was standing near the foot of my bed and was doing a balancing act putting socks on. When I went to put my right leg back down, my pant leg somehow got stuck on the footboard of my bed. My jeans somehow then decided to rip and my knee moved in a way it was never intended to. I'm definitely a klutz and tend to find myself in weird situations like this far too often. I got out of bed a few weeks ago and turned my ankle, tore every ligament and have to use crutches now. Edit. Thanks for all the suggestions. I always figured it's just something you were stuck with after a bad sprain, but after all the replies I'll definitely look into physical therapy. I don't always roll a joint, but when I do it's my ankle. Laughing with a friend of mine at Dairy Queen. Laughed so hard because he pulled out a condom instead of money and he thought everyone saw him, so I burst into gut-wrenching laughter, apparently rupturing my L4-L5-S1 vertebrae requiring emergency surgery. Holy shit, this one wins. I have the same ruptured discs and they've hurt for a decade now. I crashed a four-wheeler. If I would have destroyed them by laughing, that would have pissed me off for life. Twice now, once because of laughing and the second time stepping off a curb and nick in front of Cartier. I am never wearing pants again. Well, your mistake was wearing them in the first place. Broke my collarbone after accidentally rolling onto the floor off a bunk bed. It was the bottom bunk. But simultaneously knocked myself out from the impact. Rather than get a railing, my dad built a custom bunk bed with 3 bunks, like an L-shaped desk with 2 levels, and I was assigned one of the lower beds. My middle brother ended up jumping off the top bunk onto the lower bunk often. Once he jumped too far and broke his nose on the wall. I think all of us are a bit clumsy. We may be primates, but we are a long way from the trees. I was sitting on a couch. There was a blanket on the floor barely covering my feet. While seated, I leaned forward to pull the blanket onto myself, pulled a muscle in my back and was out of work for 4 days. I've done this, walking and taking off a jacket. Sudden lightning in my back. Couldn't walk for a week. Had to go to physical therapy for 3 months. Turns out I was not using my muscles correctly for years. Had to relearn how to use my own body, so it, hopefully, won't happen again. PT is great BTW, even if you aren't in pain anymore. I'm now deeply paranoid that I am in some way not using my muscles correctly. I injured my knee by crouching to pet a cat. I could barely walk for a few days and couldn't do any exercise or sports for nearly a month. Did you yell out in pain and then the cat got startled? I don't think I yelled. It hurt too much to remember I had body parts other than my knee. The cat was so mellow she wouldn't have freaked out even if I did yell, though. I built a nice counter for our laundry room, installed the new washing machine, installed the wall-mounted dryer, made shelves with the leftover wood, and even found time to plant an apple tree my mom had bought, all in the same day, then slipped a disc when I was washing my hands. Yeah, but that's how it happens. You stop moving and your muscles are all worn out and get lazy and your posture sucks and some other muscles try to pick up the slack but they aren't meant to and you end up contorting something in a way it shouldn't be and bam, bedridden for a week. Been there. Yep, same thing happened to my dad. Worked on his car for an entire day. Back popped when he reached inside the fridge for a beer colon. When I was a little kid, I fell over and broke my collarbone while sitting and eating waffles. I wish this was fake. Edit. About a year before this incident, I broke the same bone playing on my mother's bed. I believed I was a Power Ranger and rolled off the bed, onto the hardwood floor. How? I don't remember exactly, but I was sitting funny in the chair and I guess I shifted my weight and the chair went over. Not the smartest. I was once concussed after being dropped off late to school. Turned back to wave to my dad and ran smack straight into a stop sign and dropped cold. Mayo, imagine your dad is rushing to school to drop you off late and takes his eye off you for less than a second before you're face down on the pavement. Man, he wasn't kidding. School really is hard on him. In 2 spots it went all the way through my phacomedes and hit my front teeth. Lucky me, it didn't crack a tooth. Thanks for the trip, Mr. Telescope. Who knew stargazing was such dangerous activity? Lucky you had hit your upper lip and didn't deep throat you. Telescope didn't want to be on a list. Sneezed, threw my back out. Did that while doing a push-up. Agony across my whole upper back for a couple weeks. My dad sneezed whilst bent over brushing his teeth. He is a tall man. Threw his back out. Slipped a disc which has now turned into 3 slipped discs. And has suffered with sciatica ever since. You know all those terrible injuries you can get by exercising with heavy weights in the gym if you use poor technique? Well, how about subbing your toe on the power rack so hard you can't walk for days? My buddy decided to use the bench after someone pressing 3 plates per side was using. Not being a physics person, he unracked all 3 plates on one side, went around and began to unrack on plate from the other side. The bar flips up, smacks him, and drops the other plates on his big toe. He took a 8-year break from the gym after that. The real issue here is the a-hole who didn't put his weights away to begin with. Edit. I love you salty beaches so much. Is less than 3. Pulled a muscle in my right butt cheek while taking a nap. Couldn't walk properly for the next 7 hours. The one cheek wonder. 2 years ago I tore my meniscus and blew out my knee playing ping pong at our office Christmas party. Stepped to the left and went down hard. Worst part was 2 days later when I finally stubbornly went to emerg that the nurses keep me a pro athlete and the dude ahead of me had the exact same injury from a vicious hockey hit. A friend of mine tore his meniscus dancing at a frat party. He told me he went to get low, heard a pop, and couldn't really get back up. Couldn't walk for a couple of days and had to wear a brace for about 3 months. It was very public too. As I sat there in agony, my leg suddenly twisted back into place. I got a hernia from taking a dump. Must have been a massive dump. It very well may have been Bono. I bowled in college. One day I ended up showing up to practice late because I slept through my alarm when I took a nap. So I'm rushing to get to practice like I ducked up. At this point I'm like 45 minutes late and finally get to the bowling alley, and in my infinite wisdom, I decide I'm just going to start throwing shots without easing into it because I've already missed enough practice. It wasn't a day full of good decisions, as you can tell. 2 shots in I proceed to throw out my hip and was limping around for over a week. I not only threw out a hip at 19, I did it bowling. TLDR, 19-year-old turned 65 in the blink of an eye. I remember having a sore hip after bowling in my early 20s. I've always been old. Heard the pop. Didn't hurt too bad at first, so I went about my day. When I got home I couldn't get my shoe off without unlacing it fully due to swelling. Went in the next day and yup, broke my foot by stepping off a curb. The bed. My mouth and her breasts are covered in blood. She jumps out of bed in shock, bolting for the bathroom, and I realized I've lost a tooth. Instant boner killer. Depends what he is into. Everyone at work was kind and understanding and didn't mock me. The last sentence was sarcasm. They gave me hell. Try a paper cut from a cardboard box. I remember staring at it thinking I didn't know this was possible. I work at UPS. Box cuts are a thing and they suck. I look like I've gotten in a fight with a cat every day. That created a blood clot which then lodged in my brainstem, causing a massive stroke. I spent a month in the hospital and had to relearn to swallow, speak, focus my eyes, stand, walk, and a dozen other little things. Don't fall asleep watching YouTube videos, I guess. I'm sorry that happened to you. I was cutting potatoes. Couldn't figure out why I couldn't cut completely through this specific potato. Turns out my finger was in the way. It wasn't a bad injury. Didn't hurt at all. Didn't need stitches. And was actually pretty funny. but there was a ton of blood, and all the other students and the teacher were all freaking out. Bleeding is fun. Thanks for watching this Reddical video. Subscribe for the best Reddit videos straight to your feed 3 times a day.